If you're thinking about moving to London, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to have to put on your checklist to figure out. But make sure to check out this video because we're going to feature 12 things you definitely must know if you're considering a move to London. Hi everyone, can't wait to dive into this video where we're going to give you the nuggets you're going to need to not just find a perfect property in London, but make sure you can settle in as easily as possible. First up, we're going to highlight the great Oyster Card. Now the Oyster Card is synonymous with transport and travel. It's evolved over the years, so where there used to have the very recognizable Oyster Card, it's actually now more about contactless payment. Point is, you're going to definitely need an easy way to access London public transport, and the Oyster Card is the way to do it. London has actually become cashless on buses and tube stations, so it'd be really inefficient to have to worry about carrying cash or purchasing Oyster Cards on site. So make sure you download and keep in mind and keep on tap a contactless option. The key is to tap in and out of the same card to make sure you get credit, which will cap your daily limit. If you're bringing under 18s on, make sure to get them registered to take advantage of the discounts offered to our younger population. Number 2 to point out about moving to London, you're definitely going to probably have to compromise on storage space because there's not a lot of it. You might need to say goodbye to some of your trinkets and figure out what really is most important when you're moving. Storage is definitely at a premium, and the key is, I think, moving to London is that we generally live out of our homes more. We'll definitely meet up in bars and cafes more often, whereas I remember my days in living in America, it was all about hosting in your own home. So make sure you keep in mind, what do you really need to bring over if you're moving, because you're probably not going to be able to store all of it. Next top tip is the transport. As I mentioned, London has an extensive transport network that includes the subway or underground trains, overground trains, regional trains, the very famous red double-decker buses, the DLR, water taxi, black taxis, Ubers, zip cars, or walking, biking, or scooters. You definitely probably won't need a car in London, especially if you're in zone 1 or 2. When I was moving over, I thought about bringing over my big SUV, and when you looked at the maintenance costs to look after the car, as well as your transport options, it definitely made more sense to keep the car in America and just get used to your transport options here in London. Make sure to check out my London travel guide where we highlight actually some of the best ways to get around the city. If you're relocating to London with kids, make sure you consider your school options, because some schools, especially some of the best ones, will be based on catchment areas, which means they're only available for access for those who live in a particular area. If you want to know more about schools, we'll include a link to our recent video, which we'll include in the description. Number 5 on my top list of things to consider when moving over is the whole concept of opening up a bank account. Can be a very circular, frustrating process. Why? Because in order to open a bank account, you need an address, but oftentimes you're relocating, you're not going to have an address, and you're not going to be able to get an address if you can't show, or past tenant referencing, if you can't show that you have a bank account. So it can be a bit circular. One of my top tips is, if you bank with, say, an international bank, you might want to see if you can open up a UK bank account while you're in the States, for example, or you might try some of the online banks that now have options for you. If we're going to throw in a little bit of a lifestyle bonus, make sure as you take escalators in London, particularly if you're not inclined to walk up the escalators, make sure to stand to the right. You definitely don't want to be frustrating a very busy professional in the middle of rush hour as you're trying to get to their next location. Coming back to our list, number 6 is, if you're renting, make sure you consider the additional bills you might want to factor above and beyond just the cost of rent. Number 1, you might have to think about obviously utilities, but also we have a concept called council tax, as well as a TV license that you're definitely going to want to factor in to your budget. Number 7 on our list, if you are renting, is the fact that properties might come furnished or unfurnished. So depending on your needs, it might impact the options you're going to have for rental options. Number 8 for rental properties is that many do not accept pets. Well, I think London is one of the most pet-friendly locations, especially for dogs. It is actually surprising that probably about 50% of the properties won't include ability for you to have a pet. So you definitely want to check that out. Make sure you know which ones will do and what features you're going to have in terms of the property. We've actually got a great video on moving to London with your pet, so make sure to check that out as well. Number 9 on our list for renting is actually we've got a concept called a break clause. So it means that you might not have to have a property for your whole fixed term. In America, you're very used to pretty much committing to at least 12 months to rent a property, but here you might have a break clause starting from month 6, which gives you or possibly the landlord the option to break the lease in the middle of your fixed term. Number 10 on my list is when you make an offer on a purchase, it is actually not a binding agreement. It's going to take weeks or months of due diligence to get to the point of what's called exchange of contract, which is when your purchase is actually now legally binding. If you want to know more, we've definitely got some great videos on your buying options. Number 11 is the concept of lease versus freehold. Again, we've got a great video on that. A freehold is a standalone home. You're going to own everything about that property. If you're buying a flat, which is going to be the majority of options here in London, you're going to be probably looking at a leasehold structure, which means you've got a freeholder that owns the property, the building itself, as well as the underlying land. It might mean additional costs as well, including service charges as well as ground rent. And finally, there's a third option. If you are buying, say, a flat, it could be a share freehold, where you are part of the ownership of the freehold property. And finally, number 12 on our list is there are going to be additional fees when you're purchasing your property. We've got a concept called stamp duty, which is a tax on purchase, as well as service charges, which I've mentioned, which are going to be, if you're buying a flat or something with a communal area, we're going to have to be contributing to the shared cost of the communal area of maintaining that property. Or there might be a sinking fund, which is contributing to the long-term capital improvements of that property. I hope this video has been helpful in highlighting some key things, whether you are renting or buying or thinking about it in London, or as you think about relocating. If you want to know more about London or finding your own perfect piece of London, I'd love for you to connect with me. We are on social media throughout, and make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing because we put out weekly videos. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos on my YouTube channel where I share great tips and information about the London property market and living in this fabulous city. So that's Ugo Arinzeh with Onyx Property Team and Keller Williams. Bye for now.